Hi everyone, so I'm going to be talking about abuse and neglect in family systems. I already tried to record this and I went too long, so I'm kind of just going to jump right into it. So for this I read chapter 14 in Families in Change, Promoting Pathways to Resilient Outcomes for Maltreated Children. I also read some articles that I'll talk about throughout. One was McGuire-Jack et al. 2022, and one was Schwab-Reese et al. 2022 as well. So I'm going to talk about how abuse and neglect can affect family systems. According to childhelp.org, more than 4 million referrals are made to child protection agencies involving over 4.3 million children each year, and that includes multiple child households. Regarding family systems, abuse and neglect have a substantial impact on family dynamics. Not only can a child or family member feel isolated when they are subjected to abuse or neglect, but this isolation is likely affecting an entire family unit, which makes abuse and neglect even more available to perpetrators. Child abuse and neglect can contribute to depression, anxiety, and conduct disorder, among other things, according to McGuire-Jack et al. Oh, I think that was 2020, everyone. I'm sorry about that. I'm double checking. Nope, I have 2022. I just wrote it wrong. Okay, so interventions and strategies to identify and resolve abuse and neglect are not universal, and they can be different for each family or family member. So the root of abuse and neglect can come from a combination of many factors, making it difficult to resolve if not every single one of those factors is addressed. A few common risk factors for victims of abuse are being under the age of 4 and having special needs, the increased caregiver burden, which in our case obviously can also be medical needs or medical diagnoses. And that is according to the CDC. Also, according to the CDC, there are a myriad of factors that contribute to risk factors for perpetrators. That could be drug or alcohol issues, having been abused themselves, and there's a whole list of things. You can check out that website if you are interested. There are also family and community factors that contribute, similarly to how a family exists in the ecological system, I think according to Bronfenbrenner. And the article by McGuire-Jack et al. 2022 contains information regarding many resources that families facing adversity or financial difficulties can use, and that can be like TANF or SNAP are mentioned in those articles. It's a lot of the time financial assistance or assistance getting food, things like that. And the authors of that study reported that it did help to alleviate stress that can lead to child abuse and neglect. So it supports the concept that an abusive or neglectful environment can stem from many factors, one of them being financial instability, which is huge, and I'll probably mention that again. So those are some resources. You might not think that financial instability or not having access to resources is like a direct cause of child abuse, but it's kind of like adding to the many other stressors and things like that that can cause that. So when working with families that have experienced abuse and neglect, it's important to evaluate a family's safety. So one intervention that can greatly alleviate parental stress is respite care, which kind of takes me into number 4 on my handout. I'm going to come back to number 3, which is resilience. So the resources I cited that we could refer families to, national, are the Trauma and Child Abuse Resource Center, and that's through the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychology and the National Child Abuse Coalition. Both of those websites have preventative measures, recognizing abuse, maybe things that you can do to cope with that trauma, things like that. So those are both really good websites. Locally, the resources I chose are Vanessa Mee and Crisis Nursery or Save Families. I kind of use those like interchangeably, but mostly I picked those just for respite care, which can be huge in alleviating parental stress and hopefully reducing that abusive and neglectful behavior. And that those organizations also give parents support through the staff. We can talk to them about what's going on in their lives and connect them with other resources. And then I also chose Nurse Family Partnership, which was a resource mentioned in the text as well. And that is when moms that are pregnant can be matched up with someone that works for Nurse Family Partnership, so they have a nurse that is their resource that can does home visits, can check on them, answer any questions they have, things like that. So it's just huge to have a person of support that isn't necessarily their significant other or a family member, or maybe they don't even have those people around in their lives. So I think that is a great resource in kind of like helping moms when they're particularly stressed out. Okay, so those are the resources, and then I will go on finally to resilience. So, there are some barriers for children and families experiencing abuse and neglect. For example, children might not even know that they're being treated in a way that is not okay, especially if they fall into that vulnerable group that we talked about, being under the age of 4 or having developmental or even medical needs. Another source that I found about this was Schwab Reset All that I mentioned. 2022, they investigated disclosure experience for individuals. So obviously those are older children and adolescents and teens because they're able to self-report their experiences, but they found that technology can help children have more access to services they disclose, like chat lines and text numbers and things like that, not necessarily hotlines that you call or professional services that you call, things like that. They found that participants often had unsatisfactory experiences when they were trying to report maltreatment in the past. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind, that it's not always just something that children or people can just tell someone about and it's resolved. That's not really how it works. It's just a lot more complex than that. But trying to provide accessibility for people to talk about what they have going on is a really good thing. Realistic goals for family members seeking relief might not involve completely resolving every factor that's contributing. But one of the biggest obstacles in promoting resilience in children and keeping them safe is that for them to stay with their families, many different problems need to be resolved, and abuse or neglect are not things that parents are always open and honest about, understandably. Issues related to child abuse and neglect can include a lack of support or isolation, cultural background, poverty, personal circumstances, so many things. A common theme among topics of abuse and neglect is a lack of understanding as to why people don't speak up or leave those types of situations, and for a lot of times kiddos just don't even have that option. Okay, so talking about resilience. Resilience can be promoted in children that have faced adversity, such as that of abuse and neglect. The best support that they can get is effective and consistent. So strategies for promoting resilience are outlined in that chapter 14 of Families and Change. The authors state that resilience is a multi-determined process. It can look different for each child or each family member, and it can change over time. Because child maltreatment is often early onset and enduring, it can be difficult to provide stability to abused or neglected children. This whole section I'm kind of going through right now is from the textbook. Or, technically kind of citing that. An absence of protective factors puts abused or neglected children at risk for developmental issues. For example, it can cause a lot of problems with attachment. There are a lot of factors that contribute to how resilient a child might be, and that can be just like personal characteristics and traits and things like that. And it can also be more difficult for older children sometimes to recover from or cope with that trauma, just because it's been shown that sometimes very young children have a very strong capacity to be resilient. Older children might not. The authors discuss the role of personal characteristics, personality factors, etc. Some contribute to kind of more positive outcomes, while some might hold a child back. Like some of those traits associated with positive outcomes are like interest in school, high self-esteem, things like that. So if children don't have that for whatever reason, it might be due to what they've been through. If that's not their inherent personality, it can affect that. I think the most important thing when working with abused or neglected children is to make sure that they are not attributing that to themselves. It's not their fault. There's a ton of different types of therapy out there that have been proven to promote resilience, including like cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a whole bunch listed in the text. Some are for the individual child and some are for the whole family. So that's a great resource to refer people to. And I think I will stop it there just because of time. But let me know if you guys have any questions or anything. And thank you for watching.